over the next few sessions, we will be doing a lot about the Karakas, the Karakatwas, as well as the Charakarakas. And I think this is, like I said, Gemini astrology deals a lot with these kind of the Charakarakas. So we will be going a lot more in depth, like especially like conjunction with the Atmakaraka, if Rahu's your Atmakaraka, what it means, and conjunctions with that, then from each and every houses, and each and every houses or Rashi in the Navamsh, what it means, because it has a different connotation. And then the Navamsh Rashi, which is a Karakamsha, we bring it into the Rashi. Um, and then we see what and read the chart from there. So it's like quite a few. And then there are also yogas formed, so we will be also doing yogas. But before we get into the yogas, we will be doing like conjunctions to the Atmakaraka, to the Charakarakas, and things like that. And I don't want to make it like, oh, conjunction of two planets, conjunction of three planets. I know it's on the list of classes, like conjunction of two planets, conjunction of three planets. But I just thought at this point, maybe I will combine the conjunctions and do like with the karakas, and that way you can read more about the conjunctions per se themselves. So we will tackle that over the next few weeks, okay? And today we will look at basically the what it means as karmic cleansing, in terms of what it means regarding the Atmakaraka and the various planets. What does it mean? The Rahu Atmakaraka has got a different flavor to the, let's say, a Sun Atmakaraka. So we will see, the variations and what it means. And next week, because I didn't have time to prepare, I'm going to also do next week. The mantra specifically according to your charakaraka. So for example, if somebody has got, like, let's say, moon as their atmakaraka, so the cleansing process, will with through the mantra of Saraswati is very, very powerful. And these mantras are extremely potent. I would advise you to do them, provided you're not eating non-vegetarian. That's an absolute stupulent, at least for me. And the other variation is that, these cleansing mantras and objects to do with, whatever the your atmakaraka is going to be very, very helpful in defining the gati, or the momentum of where your soul karma lies and how it tackles it. Okay, so now here we are talking about our creator Brahma, and he's one of the three murtis. I think we've done that like many times. And according to the Brahma Purana, he is the father of Manu. The Manu Smriti is all about. Manu Smriti is an ancient Hindu text, and it has got everything to do with the right way of living, the dharmic way of living, what people should eat and how they should behave in society, and at what point, like, they should take up, like, have children, or now you would say like, oh, we don't want a manual like that, but it really is geared towards human beings. And so he's the father of Manu, hence the Manu Smriti, which is a text coming from Manu, which is like one of the first human beings, and our descendant. And but Brahma does not directly go into the creation process. He doesn't. It's like think of it like a big manufacturing unit. He assigns his task of creation to the Prajapatis. So the Prajapatis are numerous, and they essentially are engaged in the task of your creation on a big scale. And once you're created, it is up to Vishnu. And you can see Vishnu here. He's often seen with Lakshmi, the Mahalakshmi, at his feet. And he's on the Sheshnag and on the ocean, the great grand ocean. And this is kind of the classic Hiranya Garbha. He's the Brahma emerged out of a golden egg, and he is connected to the navel of Lord Vishnu, and he's often depicted as carrying the four Vedas. Now, bear in mind that Lord Brahma has, he originally had five heads, and at some point, because he fell in love with his own creation, and he wanted to marry his daughter because he was so smitten by his own creation, that Lord Shiva was very, very angry with him, and so he cut off, in his anger, he cut off Brahma's head. And so hence, Brahma spent like millions and millions of years on meditation and strengthening, and getting back into the good books of Lord Shiva. So, hence, he is also the upholder of the Vedas, because he knows that through the Vedas and through studying the various four canonical Vedas, which is the Rig Ved, which is the Agni Tattva, the Yajur Ved, the Sama Ved, which is all about singing evening energy. It has got the Athar Ved, has got the midnight energy, and the Yajur Ved has got the afternoon energy, the midday energy, and Rig Ved has got the early morning energy. So these are at the four different junctures of night and day. And so he is the upholder of the Vedas. And so any problems, anything, just pick up one of the Vedas. They will be a little bit difficult to heavy going, but they are absolutely the best remedy for any kind of karmic problems or anything like that. So, and they also get mapped into the sattva, the gunas. Now, this guna mapping is, as we will see later, is slightly different to the Parashara guna, but it's essentially really the same. Parashara has got one extra guna mapping, which we will come to. And I think I've covered this anyway, and feel free to browse into the texts of, the Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra, 2 volumes. I think it's in volume 1, I think. On He's got a whole chapter on gunas. So I will put that down on the on the Telegram group about what which chapter it is. But feel free to read it. You will get a lot of you'll connect a lot with Parashara if you go direct on the textbook. So now as we know, so hence Brahma spent all his time in sort of upholding the Vedas, and hence he's often depicted with four heads which are standing, which are still there, and which depict each one of the Vedas. And he, in his hands also, he's carrying the Veda. In one of the hands he's carrying the kamandalu, which is like a sacred water, Ganges. And he's often depicted, and lotus flower, of course, is his favorite flower, and depicted on sitting on the lotus flower. So these are some of his traits and characteristics that we can identify Brahma with. And so now the concept of, when we think about the Vedas, the four canonical works of the Vedas, as like the four kendras, the four angular houses, right? And similarly, we have the four purusharthas, which are the four canons of the dharma, and or the way of living, and the four Purusharthas are different to the ayanas, which we will come to in a minute. So the four Purusharthas is literally a way of being, how we are meant to live, and our natural goals of life that we are meant. What are we born here to do? Is it pursuit of spirituality? Then it falls under the category of moksha, because then we are seeking liberation and spiritual values. And at some point, like, we have our whole life, as in Manusmriti often depicts that our life is multifold, but yet we have four key stages which get mapped to the Purushartha. So dharma is righteousness, moral values, which is our early upbringing, where we are kind of like pursuing, and for our initial formation of values and all that. Then is the artha, which is sort of we are pursuing sort of material gains through all the knowledge and schooling and all that we have gained. We are trying to kind of sustain ourselves using those skills, using those using all those factors. And then we come to the kama, which is the third purushartha, which is all about this kind of like it has a seventh house flavor. It is the seventh house. It is all about pleasure, love seeking, studying, psychological. But the pursuits, when we talk about studying, it's a little bit more like psychological or intellectual. So it maps into the air trilogy. You see the air trine, the Libra, Gemini, which Gemini is all about. The third house is all about, wanting our own desires met, what we think, in terms of how our mind works, which guru are we following, that's all the third house stuff. And the 11th house, where we get beaten for our desire, our illicit or our horrible desires, or our wanting too much, wanting too little, not acting properly. So then that's the 11th house, which is the natural house of Aquarius, where we get beaten. And that is kind of like karma. So it forms a karma trilogy. Then the the fourth house, of course, and the moksha trilogy, which is to do with liberation. It gives us the momentum for our spiritual path, the fourth, eighth, where we transform. And eventually, that's how we land up in the 12th house, absolutely gaining moksha, that is liberation from this cycle. It is kind of like a death spirituality, that is our ultimate game in life. That is where we are meant to go ultimately. Okay, so these are like a very, very solid base from which we can catapult into viewing our entire chart, whether it's Navamsh or any other one. And these also in turn get mapped into the gunas. These in turn get mapped into the gunas and the tattvas, which is fire, water, air, and earth, which manifest eventually as gunas, which I mentioned earlier. And Parashara has Uttama Guna, which is maps into the fire one. Uttama is like fantastic. Uttam is like excellent. It's like the perfect person who follows, who's very upright in his dharma. Now you may say dharma, maybe it's moral stuff, but it is morality vis-a-vis your own nature, your own fundamental nature and karma. So like, for example, like you have to differentiate. You have the intelligence. Human beings have been granted the intelligence to the power of discrimination, the viveka. They are able to make a judgment call on what is right and what is wrong, versus think about, so you have a choice whether you should shoot a bird and eat the shoot a pigeon and eat the meat of that, or sort of pluck roots and vegetables and cook them. So there is always this choice that is to be made, because in the first option, you're actually killing the bird, you're killing a living being, and that goes against the dharma of by and large most human beings. But if it were to be, so it gets even more sort of so if your dharma, for example, is all about kshatriya dharma, that is you are a fighter by caste and by your varna, by your varna is like your colors of your being, your dharma. So if you are fighting a community like the Sikh community in India, like the armies, if you belong there, and if you then shy away from fighting and say, oh, no, 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 I can't kill anyone, oh my God, I can't, then you have no business being in the army. Then you really shouldn't be there, so again, your dharma is actually in protection. And in order for you to protect, if you have to kill something, kill the evil, then you're meant to do that. But if you start to shy away from that dharma of yours, then it's no good. That means you're not following the dharma. It's as simple as that. So for example, if a lion kills a bird or a cat or some, well, I don't think a cat, but maybe a cow, then the lion is actually just following his own dharma, because he's meant to eat the meat. You can't go up to a lion and say, hey, you can't be doing that, you can't be killing. But if a human being kills a cow and then eats it, then that is really kind of questionable in terms of their dharma. Okay, is everybody clear on that? Because I'm just trying to kind of bring forth what are the various differences and how the ancients and how it is laid down in the Manusmriti. Okay, so let me, sorry, I didn't start the, let's start from the current slide. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so now, so I would encourage you to read more about the Uttama, Madhyama Guna. Udasina is, the encompasses the air signs, and so they are a little, Udas is a little bit like on a sad one, so they can be a little bit depressing and things like that. And Madhyama is of course the water signs, and the Adhama is the earth signs. So they are more concerned, and these gunas, they are more concerned with like for example, the earth signs, they are more interested in, you know Capricorn, if you think about it, they're more interested in like what's happening to the body, diseases, because it's of course ruled by Shani. And then we think about Taurus, it wants to always be prosperous in terms of material benefits, it wants to gain. Even Virgo is a similar way, because it is the Multrikona for Rahu. So again, these are the things that you have to consider, the gunas, because they really are the very fundamental blocks. And you may well say, but what has that got to do with Jyotish? When we come to ascertaining a particular dasha or an antardasha and the results it will give, that's when these factors come into play a lot. So, for example, if you have a Satya Yuga, now again, next time I'm going to do the yugas. Right now, I've just written down the yugas for you because they are kind of relevant. But next time, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth with the yugas and how they were sort of created, and what right now we are, suffice to know for today that we are in the Kali Yuga. All of you would have heard that, the term Kali Yuga. Now, this is not like Kali Yuga. This is not like Kali, though my twist is like Kali, as in like the fierce form of consort of Lord Shiva. But Kali Yuga is a slightly different connotations. And so Satya Yuga is where everybody is very honest, very dharmic, very, the guna by and large present in the collective consciousness is in Satya Yuga is of Uttama Guna. Uttama Guna meaning very dharmic, as we see here, very righteous, high moral values. So they are very truthful, very honest, so those are the values that are present in this particular yuga. These are huge chunks of time. Okay, and again, like I reiterate again, please don't get daunted by the yugas. I will cover this next time, or the week after, because it is sort of astronomical, and I will have to go into a little bit on the astronomy of it. So it's well worth it. So right now, for this discussion, we will just map the yugas and the various the quadruplities. Now Treta Yuga is nothing but the water signs. So it rules the communities, national dharma, that is, how connected you are, how much you are into the large communities, international and national level. kind of work, those will be your, you would be toying with those issues to do with that. So you won't just sit at home and start to write about something. You will be people who are activists who play a key role. For example, this is very relevant. Dr. Vandana Shiva, she's one of my favorite activists, and she's from Uttarakhand region of India. And Uttarakhand is like the whole one of the key portions of the Himalayan region. And she is a huge activist. She was instrumental in sending Bill Gates Foundation out of the country, because she believed that the farmers, that the Bill Gates and Monsanto and all the stuff that was being done was criminal, and they were undermining the ancient methods of farming in India, among the farming community. And she's all pro for the indigenous farms and their ways, their holistic ways of kind of farming methods. So hence she was fighting on a national level, she was for the community. So this is, she must have, so whatever period, I don't know her chart, I would love to, I will find out. If you guys can find out more about her chart, or if somebody is has any kind of access to it, feel free, I would be delighted. So that is an example of somebody who is fighting on a very, who has a very deep ingrained consciousness about, for working with communities, on the behalf of communities, on the betterment of communities, and as well as on a national level, because she's contributing to society in a massive way. Okay, so that is it's a sort of like a very strong water science which gets mapped into the Treta Yuga. So, and Treta Yuga then also has the rest of them, but it may not have universal dharma. Universal dharma is something where, you're toying between the whole cosmic, the entire knowledge of the cosmos and the entire universe and things like that. So those are kind of, I don't know, like Lord Krishna and Lord Rama, they were all Satya Yuga, kind of examples who fought against the evil, and who also, Lord Rama was instrumental in restructuring all the Vedas and the Upanishads, and he literally helped he was instrumental in doing that. And so that is a very dharmic, for rest of humanity has benefited, obviously, and that is a very dharmic way. So that is an example of somebody, a great avatar of the Satya Yuga. Then we come to the Dwapar Yuga, the third one, which maps into all the air signs. There people just follow a couple of kinds of dharma of one's own family, our extended family, our close kith and kin. So it's a kind of a very narrow funneling down. And then of course our own wants and desires and needs, and what I want and what I want to achieve, and what, my company, my promotion, all of that, my PhD, my this and my that, and my children, and my cousins, and all that, that is all falls under Dwapar Yuga. There's nothing wrong with it, but air signs predominantly get mapped into the Dwapar Yuga. Then we come to the Kali Yuga, that is where we are, where everything will fail. People will be wicked, people will be like horrible to each other, they will be selfish, they will be like, I don't need to even say anything, given the fact that what the kind of mess we are in with COVID, and especially it's really sad about India and the second wave. And, these are all examples of that we are truly in Kali Yuga, where we have been too funneled and tunnel visioned in just following our own self, whatever we want, whatever our thing is, nothing to do with, other kinds of learning, anything else, just our own selves. So that is kind of like an offshoot of the Kali Yuga. um so those are the few things. Like I said, next time we will explore much more in depth. Like Lord Krishna is the Kali Yuga avatar, you know. He's the one who can help us to overcome the darkness of the Kali Yuga. And so the earth signs get mapped into that. And is it any wonder that Saturn in Capricorn, Sidereal, you would think is a very strong one, Saturn in his own sign, you know. But it is it, Capricorn is the Kali Yuga Rashi. You know, it's the Yuga Rashi for Kali Yuga. And so, and Capricorn is depicted by the Shamshan, you know, the cemetery. That's what it is depicted by. Its symbolism is Kali, Mahakali giving the souls and handing it over from the dead bodies and handing it over to Lord Shiva, her consort. So that is, we are talking, we are definitely in Kali Yuga. And, you know, and she's having a lot to hand over currently, you know, a lot of souls are passing. So, and that is that we are, that's why the earth signs and especially Capricorn gets mapped into the Kali Yuga. So that is how you have to think, you know, that is how you have to kind of that is how it gets all mapped in. Okay, now this is for the Navamsh chart. um so the Navamsh Lagna, so the each of the Kendras of Navamsh chart get mapped into, again, like, you know, what is the highest dharma, what is the least amount, and things like that. So again, the seventh house gets mapped into the spousal and familial relationships. Remember, in the D9 chart, the Lagna, Navamsha Lagna is you. And that is the reason why any planets in the Navamsha Lagna is showing your natural abilities. Okay. That, remember, we did in the past 3 sessions. That's all we have done. Planets in Lagna, planets in trines, planets in that, all our own abilities. So 159, 1, it's all about us. Me. That's it. My Swadharma. That is all there is to it in the Navamsha, in the D9 chart. And the seventh house, now flip it around, the seventh house is you, your spouse. So it's first house is you, the seventh house is your spouse, your familial relationships, researching spiritual practices, striving towards perfection, and things like that. The spiritual practice is distinctly different to the 12th house of Navamsh, which is about death, freedom, and spiritual one. But the 12th house of the D9 chart is very kind of, it's a little bit touch and go, you know. It can be, it will never be a super benefic. Planets there will bring you to the karma, you know, your spiritual karma, whatever, bring you to death or freedom in one way, form, or the other. Okay. So then the 10th house, of course, the Kendra in D9 is one of, it's Vishwakarma. It's Vishwakarma is a celestial architect, and it's literally, it's the entire universal dharma. So any planets here, buying, selling related to the field and nature of planets will alter that. So if you have Rahu there, then you will be kind of, you know, there will be a little bit of loss and things like that. We went into that. So I just wanted to point out that the 10th house in the D9 is your highest dharma. Then the second, the fourth dharma is a fourth house. Of course, it's an axis, fourth and 10th, and first and seventh. And the fourth house is about motherland. If we are united by language, the food we eat, it's also the Kara Bhava. That's why diseases, you know, if you have malefics here, diseases turn up here. Sometimes even death will turn up here. You know, sometimes definitely all kinds of diseases or initiating some kind of disease will come under this purview, under the fourth house in D9. And so any kind of remedial measures, mantras, you know, the deity of the fourth house in the which is called the Karabhava, is a fantastic thing to do. Next week, please remind me. I will put, or maybe in the Telegram group. I know I haven't been, it's just been a very busy time for me. But the fourth house, all you have to do is take the name of that particular deity, and that will cleanse your system. It will help you to clean up. That is a very, very powerful house. And similarly, 4th from your Karakamsha will also help you to, literally, that deity will help you to clear all the negativity connected to the fourth house, the disease, and those kind of issues. Okay, is everybody clear on that?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so then we already did this.
Sorry, Sona.
Yeah.
And there are specific deities that are fixed or do they depend? And how can you find about the deity? Um,
How can you find about the deity?
hmm, yeah, there are like six deities. So, for
Sorry.
example, for the fourth house, the deity changes according to the sign that is occupying in the fourth house. For example, for protection from disease.
So what you're saying is that which deity to follow, just the name of it. If you don't have
Yes,
planets,
if you don't have planets.
the deities that we use are the Dasha Mahavidya deities. We haven't done the Dasha
Yeah.
Mahavidyas, but they are
Okay.
basically, for example, if you have sun there, right? Let's say somebody has sun there, or for example, fourth from Karakamsha is, let's say Taurus is your Karakamsha. Okay, so fourth is Leo, right? So fourth house is Leo. Let's say you have sun in Leo. Then Matangi, just the name of saying Matangi, Matangi, Matangi will be very, very powerful. Okay. That's
Okay.
number one. If you don't have sun and it's just Leo, blank, nothing in there, even then, Matangi, just saying the name Matangi will be very powerful. Okay. Then, if let's say you have Rahu there, or Aquarius is your fourth house, okay, then from the Karakamsha, then it's like Chinnamashta, 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 Chinnamashta. She's the deity, very powerful for Rahu, okay. And for Ketu, it is Dhumavati. Dhumavati, just saying the name, forget the mantra, forget the, the bija sound for Dhumavati, just saying Dhumavati for Ketu being there, or if it is the fourth house is Scorpio, then Dhumavati will work very, very beautifully. Okay. So that is how we take it. If you have Mercury there, or it is a mercurial sign like Gemini, then I think it's Tripura Sundari, that will work too. Okay.
Okay. So all the depend. Each Mahavidya is of
Yeah, the
Mahavidya is
Mahavidya
related to
deities.
Plana.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
put
Thank
the
you, sir.
list. I will put the list. I've got it written down, so I will put the list. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, and if it is the moon, then it's Bhuvaneshwari. Okay. So, or the sign of Cancer, then it is Bhuvaneshwari. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
And if
Thank
it is,
you.
and if it is Lakshmi, sorry, if it is Taurus or Libra, then it is Lakshmi, sorry, it is Kamala, Kamalatmika. Just Kamala will be very, very nice form to say. Kamala, Kamala, Kamala. It is very powerful. Do not underestimate, please, guys, do not underestimate. Just saying that is extremely potent. Okay. This is how I have learned in my Gemini. So please treat this with caution. Okay. So anyway, then we come to the the Satya Yuga has got the fire signs, which is universal dharma. We went through that. Treta Yuga, this is a reiteration of that. Then the Artha, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha are the Yuga Rashis, right? And so the Yuga Rashis is like we saw, for example, I said for Kali Yuga, the Yuga Rashi is Capricorn. It's one of the earth signs, right? Similarly, for Satya Yuga, the Yuga Rashi, that is, each Yuga has got a key Rashi, that is like it brings forth life on that time. It initiates life and action and everything that is the creative power. So in Satya Yuga, the creative power will come from Aries, and so which is a fire sign. So the trilogy, the fire sign trilogy, gets mapped into the as a Satya Yuga Yuga Rashi. That's how we say it. Okay, so you may well ask me, so what is the use of all this? Well, the use is like this: these rashis, if you have the fire signs, planets in fire signs in your D9 chart, they will give you results very, very well, akin to the Satya Yuga Rashis. That means you will be able to follow all the four dharmas. You will be able to engage in all the activities of all the yugas that have to be that can be offered if you have planets in D9 in fire signs. Okay, is that very clear? It's very simple. Yeah. So, which is positive,
Yes.
right? It's fantastic, because that means that when you have a dasha of, let's say, you have Jupiter, okay, dasha going on, and your Jupiter is in, let's say, in Sagittarius, or let's say it's in Leo, fantastic. That means those years of Jupiter Antardasha or Jupiter Dasha, you will be able to manifest everything that you really not just desire, everything regarding your family and your dharma towards learning, your dharma towards communities, to be able to initiate action and pursue some kind of knowledge based system, which is a universal dharma. You'll be able to do all of that, absolutely, and you will get very good results too. It's a fantastic placement. If you, let's say, for example, you have Jupiter in a fire sign. Similarly, let's say you have, and the same thing, by the way, on a equal degree holds true even in the D10 chart, in your chart of power and career and vocation. In D10, if you have a predominance of fire signs, it's thumbs up, it's very positive. Okay, is everybody clear on that? Because that is how you assess the situation. Now, I'm not saying, don't come crying to me and say, oh my god, I have Mercury in Aries, but yet I've had such a bad day, bad time during those years. Well, it's not like that. It's by and large, it will be very, very positive. Okay, because you'll be at least be able to do all of them. But then of course we have to also see like where, which house Mercury is in, and where, how much affliction it is. If it's like with Rahu and Shani and all kinds of stuff, then it will be it'll be a little bit challenging. Okay, but by and large, if it is in the fire signs, it will be very positive. Okay, is everybody clear on that?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So similarly, the water signs, if you have planets in water signs in D9 or D10 even, then it will give you a lot of good results. You will be able to, the only thing you may not be able to pursue is like a lot during that period of that planet, the dasha or the antardasha of that planet, you may not be able to be fully engaged and focus on, let's say, complete attainment of knowledge of sorts. It also depends though. So if Jupiter, let's say, is in Cancer, in the Navam's chart, then yeah, by all means, maybe you'll be too busy doing your work nationally, internationally, promoting the community. You will have the family you want, the husband you want, and you'll have a financial well-being. So all of that will be there. But maybe you may not be that interested at that point, at that dasha or antardasha, to pursue everything to do with, let's say, knowledge, higher learning, and things like that. So yeah, it can happen like that. I'm not ruling it out, but I'm saying the focus will be slightly lower. It'll be slightly on other three things. Okay. And similarly in Dwapar Yuga, rashis, the all the air signs, if you have planets in air signs, then you can follow only just a couple of your own community, your own family, sorry, your own extended family, not community, your own extended family, and one's own interests. And if you have the Kali Yuga Rashi, earth signs in D9 or in D10, then believe you me, you will be very preoccupied. Hey, where's my finances? Let me sort this, let me sort that. It'll be a very kind of closed vision kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying this is how it will work. Okay, is everybody okay with that? Okay, because this is a very important lessons you got to remember regarding the fire, water, air, and earth signs in the D9 as well as the D10. Okay. Okay, so now we'll do a little bit about by default, the sun is the Sarvatma. That means it is our heart, it is our soul, it is our everything. He is the natural default signification, Naisargika Karaka for Agni. He is the fire in all of us. And the Adi Devta of the sun is also the is Agni. And he gives us the Atma Prabodhana, that is recognition of the soul. That is at a soul level, we can identify with the sun. It's our inbuilt spirit consciousness. And it is also the key, the luminary, the sun is illuminates our soul on that spiritual journey, our supreme spirit. It will give us all there is to know about ourselves. Atma Bodha. Atma Bodha is a great text in Vedanta, and it is all to do with our knowing of ourself. The whole text is on that. So the sun, wherever it is placed, whatever it does, by default, it is our Sarvatma. Okay. The Pratyadi Devta of the sun is Lord Shiva. That means it's like the default Devata. And the Adi Devta is the one that manifests on this planet. And the default, the all-encompassing Devta of the sun, significator of the sun, is Lord Shiva. He's the Atmavara. He's the Maheshwara, or the Lord of the self or the soul, and he's responsible for delivering the individual soul to our soul. Okay, so this concept is associated with the Sthira Karaka. Remember, we did the Charakarakas and we did the Sthira Karaka. The Sthira Karaka is nothing but the stable significators. Okay, and then we come finally to the Atmagati. So basically the sun's approach by default is multifold. It's threefold. One is its own, it's kind of like our natural significator of our fire within us, our soul, our spirit. And it gives us knowledge about our own soul. And it also delivers us to the self. So it's instrumental in delivering us on this planet. And it purifies our soul. because the sun's Agni, the fire is so strong, it acts like a purification. Remember, in all Vedanta and in all the Vedic, the Rig Veda, which is mapped into the Agni, the fire, the sun, it begins its first few lessons Agni Miye. So Agni Miye literally means that it's from the fire, the Agni. So Agni is nothing but absolute purification of the soul. It's instrumental in purifying. Atma Shuddhi. Shuddhi is in Sanskrit means purification. So again, the concept of Atma Gati is nothing but the course of the soul's existence, of its life, through the agency of the Chara Atmakarakas. That is its momentum, how our momentum of our soul goes from karma to karma to karma, among all the 8 charakarakas, right? Because the 8 charakarakas hold our karma, you know. So, for example, your Matrikaraka, your mother significator, may be a certain planet, whichever it is. That planet will hold that karma of the mother, towards the mother and the motherland, or the mother's lineage. It will hold those secrets, and it will also hold, so that and whatever that planet is up to, that momentum that it follows across all the divisional charts is where our soul will take us in the resolution of our karma. Okay, so that is a very important concept. We will do much more, because um this is like the 8 charakarakas is, as we saw last time, it's like the prism where it splits up, the white light splits up into different colors, the vibgyor, the 7 different colors, and then you add the lagna to it, and then you add rahu to it, and then you get even 2 extra colors. So basically, sorry, 1 extra with rahu. So because lagna cannot be the atmakaraka. With rahu it becomes 8 charakarakas. That means the soul, it's like an 8 petal lotus, and the way it blooms, and some petals will bloom for a short time, some will bloom for a long time, some won't even open up. So it all depends on what petal, how much of weight of karma there is in each of the charakarakas, which is akin to each of the petals. Is everybody okay with that? Yeah. So for example, okay, let's take an example. Let's say somebody's atmakaraka is 29.55 minutes or 58 minutes. That is, forget about it, let's say the sun is at 29 degrees 55 or 58 minutes. That is the atmakaraka. That is heavy karma towards the sun. The sun is carrying that karma for the soul. Okay, compared to somebody, let's say somebody's moon, let's say, whose atmakaraka, let's say the moon placement is 21 degrees. That's very little karma compared to somebody whose is, remember the 30 degrees, right? So it's basically somebody's moon is, let's say, is the atmakaraka, and their degrees of the atmakaraka moon is, let's say, 21. So that's like, there's still like 8 degrees to go, 9 degrees to go before they hit 30 degrees of the whole zodiac. So versus somebody whose sun is like, let's say, at 29:58, where there's like 2 minutes to go, and bingo, you've got 60, and you've completed the 30 degree. That's a lot of heavy karma, very, very heavy karma. So you have to similarly assess that what karma will bloom at what time. Okay, that's kind of all falling under Gemini. But right now I'm just telling you all this because I think it's kind of, you have to be aware that how it's akin to each of the lotus petals, and which blooms when. it's all a study of all that comes under Gemini, and that's kind of what we will touch upon. But first and foremost, we have to know what each planet means. Okay.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes, go on.
You said that some planets, it's important if more planets are in the D9, are in an Earth sign or air sign, and so on. Does it? And I think it's important if this planet is the Atma Karaka or the Sun, for example, right? They are special.
Yeah.
So let's say there's a lot of planets in Earth sign, but the Sun or the Atma Karaka is in a fire sign. So this person is more like has a lot of sattvic energy.
It's by and large, it's by and large, but see, we also have to see other factors, okay? Whether it is Vargottama, whether it is in what sign it is in Vargottama, and because remember, planets which are maybe it is very well placed. Let's say, for example, you have Mercury in Virgo, and Mercury is your Atmakaraka. Uh, that means you got an exalted Atmakaraka in Karakamsha, that's very positive, right? That's excellent. Now, of course, it is in its in Earth sign, but then it is still, end of the day, it is extremely beneficial. See, the thing is, it applies to all the planets in the D9, but it is not like it is specific per se to the Charakaraka, to the Atmakaraka. Do you see that? It's not like more so. It's an added advantage, but it is not like a big advantage for it. I brought that because we were doing the D9. That's why. And so you have to be aware that, because how it works is the results that it gives, you see. But the results of Atmakarika are always going to be to do with your karma. Always.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does that help you solve? I know it's not a kind of a straightforward answer. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to know if they have special weight, like Atma Karaka or and Sun have special weight.
But the Atmakarika is definitely the king. It
Yeah.
will always have a special weight. Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. Atmakarika, the sign of the Karakamsha, the Karakamsha is like, remember, the Atmakarika is like the thousand blazing suns in the house that it is in. It's the most powerful thing. You may think it is a lagna. Oh, my lagna lord is exalted, my lagna lord is so, it's in the 10th house, it's in Digbal, all that is fine. But the Atmakarika, hands down, it has to win, as in it has a say in everything. We saw that Parashara's shloka, he begins with that if it's only, remember, do you want me to go back? I'll go back in a minute to the previous slides we did last time with Parashara, where he speaks very specifically that the Atmakarika has all the power to basically to make it's calling all the shots in the chart, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to go back. It's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you'll see it in the previous, because that is the first shloka from the chapter Parashara does about the Charakarikas, that the Atmakarika is the king, and just like everybody else falls in line with the king, that's how, and then it depends if the king is supporting the planet or not. Okay. So if your Atmakaraka is not supporting some of your ventures or some of your things, forget it. It's not going to happen. If the Atmakaraka is not supporting your Raj Yoga, it's not going to happen. So you have to be on board with the Atmakaraka.
Mhm.
It is the most important planet,
Okay.
even more than the Lagna or the Lagna Lord, you know.
And I mean the one who signifies the Ishta Devta, is he the the second most important, or
See, the Ishtadevta is different because the Ishtadevta is basically like your special deity, your connection. Because remember, you can't get an Ishtadevta, you can't figure out your Ishtadevta without the Atmakaraka because you need the Karakamsha, right? To figure out the Atmakaraka. Remember,
yeah,
sorry, to figure out the Ishtadevta, we need the Karakamsha. Remember, Ishtadevta is always 12th house from the Karakamsha. It's simple, okay? If there is no planet there, then take the Drishti or take, you have to kind of, we haven't done that about how to figure out who's what, but essentially the 12th, if you have no planets, 12th from your Karakamsha, so how are you going to figure out who's your Ishtadevta? You have to then take the planet ruling it. Let's say, okay, let's say for me, my Atmakaraka is the moon in Gemini. Okay, it's Vargotama. So 12th from mine is Taurus. Now, Taurus has got, if I had, let's say, Venus aspecting, I will have to figure out what Venus is. So Venus would be my Ishtadevta, right? If I had no planets in 12th from my, Karakamsha, then Venus would be able to show me the way. Lakshmi, she's my Ishtadevta, yeah?
yes, thank
If
you.
there are no planets in the 12th house.
Yes,
Yeah, you understand that? But
Yes.
then we also have to see that where is Venus in your chart? Maybe she's like exalted. So it will alter a little bit of, her form, So if she's in Pisces, then she'll be a very exalted, she'll be like a Mahalakshmi kind of a form, very elevated form. So it all depends on what, what aspects it has and things like that. Yeah.
yes, thank you.
Yeah. So here we may have to stop, guys. But let's just do the sun Atmakaraka. Okay. Now Parashara says that the complexions of planets, sun is blood red. The deity of the planet is fire, Agni, which is the deity Adi Devta for the sun. Okay. The sun's eyes are honey colored, square body, clean habits, bilious in temperament, intelligent, limited hair on the head. Remember this thing about the sun. If you have sun in Navamsha Lagna, then often you may find that you don't have hair. I think the heat of the sun just burns up the hair. So that is the Parashara's take on it. Now, the sun also rules the father, the government. Sorry, I beg your pardon about the typo. Vedanta and Vedic studies, knowledge, and of all the yogas and the Shastras, because it is the Satya, the truth. So, all these things you will be fantastic at. But remember, if you have sun as a Atmakarika, you have to ensure that you have good relationship with your father, with governments, with royalties, with authority figures, with your mentor figures, with your great gurus, and things like that. You cannot pick up fights with them. You cannot kind of be you cannot be disloyal or kind of miserable towards them. That is part of your karmic script. Every graha, every planet has a karmically, you're not meant to do something, because a backlash for a sun Atmakarika to start picking up fights and not speak to the father is going to be quite terrible. Is everybody sure about that? I mean, clear about that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you see Swami Vivekananda, let's see what his Atmakaraka is. We'll stop after this thing. His Atmakaraka is Surya and it's in Lagna. And the Karaka, that is in his Rashi chart, okay? His sun is
Mhm.
his AK. And look at his karma, 29 degrees, 26 minutes. That's a lot and lot of karma to bloom, okay? That petal of his sun, and it did bloom. So you see, the sun is basically calling all the shots in his chart, every single thing. And the karaka of that also you have to see. Now which we will do, because it gets a little bit complicated on analysis of like who the karaka is and things like that. Of course, here the sun is in Lagna, the karaka is the sun, which is also in Lagna. So that's like an added advantage. Okay, now the other thing is, where's his karakamsha?
It is
Hello.
Vargottama.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. It is Vargottama. It is in a very elevated position. Look, it is absolutely fantastic here. It's in Lagna here, and it's in the second house in from the Navamsha Lagna, from the Lagnamsha. Fantastic. And it is Vargottama. It's also, after we do all the planets, we will see that what it means from the Karakamsha, that is from the Navamsha Lagna, where the placement of Karakamsha is will tell you volumes about your life path, what is happening, volumes. Now for him, the sun is in the second house from the Navamsha Lagna. That means the sun. So if you flip it around, the Navamsha Lagna or the Lagnamsha is in the 12th house from his Karakamsha. That's a very, very spiritual placement. And we all know what he did. He followed his vision of his guru, his master, his father, Ramakrishna. He set up Ramakrishna mission. So remember what I said about sun as Atmakaraka. You cannot ever be disloyal to your father-like figures, gurus, institutions, authorities. And he did set up an institution. It's called Ram Krishna Mutt, the ashram all over the country. So that's like a massive institution by itself, a spiritual institution. Yeah. So would you say that he lived his karma? Would you say that, oh, now, for example, Oksana, you asked, oh, what about, is it really that important? His Lagna Lord he's got a lovely yoga of Moon, Shani in the 10th house. Yes. He's got Lagna Lord in the 11th house. Yes. But what is absolutely driving him? What was his crowning karmic path? That was given by the sun. No two ways about it. It's the sun. The sun will always call the path. Yeah.
Yes,
If you
sure.
see, the
Okay.
sun will always take precedence over everything. Yeah.
So now, may I ask a
Yeah.
clarification regarding the degrees? When you said it's got a heavy karma,
Sorry, I can't hear you very
when you
well.
say,
Yeah.
probably my internet is not very
Yeah.
very
Can you,
good.
can
Sorry.
you tell me what the question is? Try
Yes,
one more.
and oh, sorry. So you said the a high degree on the Karakamcha. So I don't understand. Is it good or is it bad to have a high degree? Because you said it had a heavy karma, but it did something good.
There
So
is
when you
nothing.
said I can perceive in a kind of negative way, like a heavy karma.
Well, there's nothing negative. See, Margarita, if we can start saying that, oh, it is terrible to have so much, it just means that you have the burden of heavy karma. And now, is that negative or positive? I don't know. Lord
Yeah,
Krishna, we
okay.
will see Lord Krishna's chart next time. Lord Krishna had 16 degrees. His sun was also Atmakaraka in Leo, in the Rashi chart. And it was, I think, 16 or 19 degrees. So you see, that's
Yes,
really,
okay.
yeah. But
So 20, so exactly 29 is no.
yeah, so
Because after all, yeah,
yeah,
because you
so
think, I mean, every
absolutely,
time about he did something good,
yeah, of course.
probably.
I mean, they
Yeah,
both
yeah, yeah,
did. I mean, they both
yeah,
did.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But see, you
Okay, yeah,
see, that is all. It's all. They both were on a very. Of course, Lord Krishna is an avatar, Yuga avatar. There's no comparison. But you see, Swami Vivekananda had a lot of karma to do. Of course, he was born to do that, and he did that in the end. But what I'm trying to highlight to you is that how the planet, the first step is you have to follow the planet, the graha, which is your Atmakaraka. You have to unlock, no matter whether difficult, easy, forget about all that. You have to understand what the karma is, what it's trying to tell you. And his karma, the sun, by default, it is to do with father figures, father like gurus, institutions, all of that. So, yeah, so you get it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway, we are going to
Thank you very
stop
much.
this time, guys.